It is in the nascent stage. It is going to be developed in much more way, and this is only the initial stage. So there are a lot of things are going on, but as a faculty members, you have to listen from the experts, especially from the industry's persons, because we have to instill the confidence on the students in various areas, the emerging areas. So then only the students will get the do that. So you have to listen and attend the program, and finally you have to give some assignment or mini project or project for the students, and they have to do something so that they will get the better opportunity in the career perspective. So I hope this STTP will be very much useful to the faculty members. I wish you all the very best. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Now it's time to introduce the chief guest of today's function, a magnetic personality, Mr. G. Suyambunathan, Practice Director, IoT, HCL Technologies, Chennai. We call upon Ms. S. Nitya, Assistant Professor, to introduce our chief guest.
A pleasant good morning, everyone. I feel extremely honored to introduce our chief guest of the day, Mr. G. Suyambunathan, Practice Director, IoT, HCL Technologies, Chennai. He completed his MCA from Manonmaniam Sundaranar University with distinction and University second rank. He has an overall experience of 22 plus years in the IT industry spanning across embedded or enterprise Java applications development, digital experience management, building enterprise social networking platform, technical architecture, setting up COAs, strategic consulting and delivery management. He has published various knowledge articles, white papers on IoT in leading publications including TechCrunch. He has been a speaker in various academic, business and corporate events at the domestic or international level. It is a great privilege to have such energetic personality with us today. He heads the IoT solution practice in HCL, and in this role, he is responsible for helping customers in leveraging IoT for their business transformation, building end-to-end IoT solution for manufacturing, healthcare, energy and utilities, and other industries. He has been practicing for the last 5+ years on the new age technology like blockchain, AR, VR, artificial intelligence or machine learning, etc. We feel honored by your presence, sir. On behalf of VCET and Department of Computer Science and Engineering, we once again welcome you, sir.
Thank you, Nitya. A man of distinct vision, experience, and inspiration to all of us is our chief guest. May we now request him to present his inaugural address.
Sure. Thank you, Nitya. Thank you, everybody. It's a great honor to be here among the distinguished personalities who are serving the education industry in our country. So my utmost respect always goes to the teachers across the globe who are relentlessly spending their energy, effort, and life in improving the education and the status of our education system in our country. So I would like to start my note with a big thank you to all of you, each one of you who are in this industry, education industry, and serving the society by relentlessly providing your knowledge and enlightening the upcoming generations. That's the most respected job in my opinion. Okay, and it's a great honor again to be on such a good event where the faculties themselves are trying to cross-learn, upskill themselves to be in the forefront of these technology evolution that's happening around the world, right? And making sure that they lead by example. So which means how do you as faculties equip yourselves with the latest technologies and so that you take along those learnings that you gain and your experiences and feed them appropriately to the students who can then build upon their career on some of these technologies. So a great initiative by AICT, in my opinion. So, and I'm sure there are various such initiatives that AICT usually conducts to improve on, or to make sure that the faculties and the students are up to speed on what's happening around the globe, and the students' employment or employability, I would say, employability index goes up. So we would have heard a lot about how there is used to be, or the perception is there used to be a big gap between what's academically taught in institutions, educational institutions, versus what's expected out of uh, the upcoming students when they become employees in an organization, right? So the expectation in industry versus what used to be taught in the academic institutions on their academic life, there used to be a large gap. To some extent that still exists, but there is a long way that our education system has also come in bridging that gap. And these kind of initiatives are a proof point to communicate to the entire world that we are bridging that gap much faster than what everybody thinks. And the topic of today, which is IoT and blockchain, which is very close to my heart, since I'd been spending close to about 6-7 years in this space, last 6-7 years, and practicing a lot of things around these two topics. So it's very close to my heart, and a very needed one in today's and upcoming world. Okay, so technology which will definitely, in my opinion, revolutionize every other industry. Okay, and it would impact every other human being in the upcoming future in a very, very positive way. So it's very good to be part of a forum where these two technologies are being discussed, debated, and I would look forward to having an engaging session with everybody in the next inaugural address on the topic of IoT. And I could also see the series of topics that are lined up for the next 6 days. So which covers the length and breadth of blockchain and IoT in great depth. So my special thanks to all those resource persons who have come forward to share this with a larger audience. So kudos to you all. You're again doing a great job by sharing the knowledge that you have gained from your experience and from your research that you are doing today. So on that note, of course, IoT and blockchain, I would not be able to tell you much more than what you already know, because you are all in the research field, and you would be researching more than so from an academic knowledge perspective, you would have a much more knowledge than what I would have. So basically what I intend to share is my practical experience of how these technologies were put into use, and how these technologies have evolved over a period of time, and how they would evolve in the upcoming days, so that they become useful to the humankind, and we get what we intend to get from these technologies, or for that matter any technology, right? They should be an enabling factor in the human kind, and the upliftment of our society. So that's what I'm looking forward to. And as a technology, while IoT and blockchains are kind of emerging technologies, right? So they have a lot of potential in creating systems, so which are kind of trustworthy, right? So that's the basic premises of having a blockchain technology, is to see how you create that trustworthiness within the society, right? Where people interact with each other, or people exchange something with each other, right? So today there are entities like bank and government organizations, agencies which come into the play. So this technology is trying to see how those, it's not that we will get rid of bank altogether. Bank will exist, and they will exist for different form and shape, but for two people to exchange value seamlessly, right? The technology ensures that you don't need a third entity. So which kind of slows down the whole process, and which also puts a big question on the various trustworthiness of these third party entities that come into the picture. With all the recent news you would have heard about different banks going into corruption and get coming into the wrong, I mean, into the news for wrong reasons, right? So how do you avoid all that? So that's what blockchain as a technology is trying to accomplish, and IoT is trying to kind of democratize that by bringing data points, proof points for anything and everything around us. So that's how these two technologies are culminating together. So let's see how they are set up for success in the coming days. There's a lot to watch in this space. So it's an exciting space that you are entering into. So if anybody's interested, you can always get in touch with me offline, and I'll be more than happy to share my views. So with that, once again, I thank all the people, professors, including students, support staffs, and everybody who are putting together their effort in organizing this event, and looking forward to a successful one. And my best wishes to all of you guys. Thank you.
Thank you, sir, for your informative talk. And now this event is about to come to the end, and a grateful heart is a magnet of miracles. We now invite Dr. S. Kayalvili, coordinator of this SDGP, to propose the vote of thanks.
Happy morning to all present online. It's a privilege and a great pleasure for me to extend a word of thanks on behalf of the Department of Computer Science and Engineering and the entire fraternity of LLO College of Engineering and Technology to all those who have contributed in one way or other to make this inaugural function a success. First, we sincerely thank AECTE for granting the sponsorship to conduct this STTP. We express our heartfelt gratitude to our secretary and correspondent, Sri Chandrasekhar sir, who gave us optimistic inspiration in all our activities. We are highly indebted to our principal, Dr. M. Jayaraman sir, who is well known for his boundless energy, patience, integrity, and commitment. We thank our Dean, Professor B. Chaychandra sir, and COE, Dr. K. R. Vallaman sir, for their eminent leadership. We accord our sincere gratitude to our today's chief guest and resource person, Mr. G. Swayambunathan, Practice Director, IoT, HCL Technologies, Chennai, for his informative and valuable speech and for going to spend his precious time with us in this first session. We also thank all other resource persons who are going to share their knowledge with us in the coming sessions of this Series 3. We thank our HOD, Dr. S. Jabin Begum, for her valuable guidance. We also thank the HODs, faculty members, and non-teaching staff members of all departments and the ministerial staff members for joining with us today. We thank all the participants of this Series 3 who are going to actively participate for these 6 days. Looking forward for your great cooperation in the coming days of this STTP. I once again thank you all for joining with us. Thank you.
Thank you, ma'am. Thank you all who have joined for this inaugural function. Now let us invite our resource person for the first session of the Series 3 6 days STTP, Mr. G. Swayambunathan, Practice Director, Chennai, to move the session forward.
Sure. Thank you, Vishnu Priya. So how do I start? I mean, can I start sharing my screen and we can start the session, or you want to have
Sir,
so let me,
please share your screen, sir.
sure.
Okay, sir.
Just give me 2 minutes when I set it up. I'll be on mute. Okay.
Okay, sir. Sir, kindly unmute, sir. Unmute your audio, sir.
Can you hear me now?
Yes, sir. Okay, sir. So screen is also visible, sir.
Great. All right. So once again, welcome you all to this session on IoT overview. So what I intend to share in the next couple of hours is uh, the basic knowledge about IoT and what it constitutes, right? How it has originated and how it's impacting different industries across the globe, right? And what are all the different solutions that are getting built around this technology, right? And also we'll be covering its adjacent technology of blockchain and how blockchain together with IoT is creating a boom in the industry, right? And how these two technologies are seamlessly intertwining itself in building solutions, right? And complementing each other seamlessly and so nicely to build those scalable solutions for different industries and both for socioeconomic reasons as well as for business reasons as well, right? So how these technologies are coming together, so that's what I intend to share in the next couple of hours. So one humble request to everybody is I want this to be an engaging session. So that's how I usually conduct my sessions and expect it to be more interactive. So please don't consider this as yet another monologue lecture which where somebody comes and shares his knowledge and goes away. It's very important for me to personally very important for me to ensure that whatever that I'm seeing is understood and it's reflecting in your thought process. So and the only way in which I can be sure that it is reflecting in your thought process is those instant feedback, those instant questions that you will be asking. Feel free to ask any questions. If I have the answers, I'll be more than happy to share that. If I don't, I'll park those questions and probably somebody can make a note of those questions which I'm not able to answer, and I'll get those answers offline to you. So because it's an emerging topic, so and I may not have answers to all of them, so I'll do my best to answer it now. If not, I'll share those answers offline through email. So hope that helps everybody. So make sure, please make sure that it's an interactive session. Okay, so that's very, very important, and that's the only ask I have from you all. All right, so moving forward, just to break the ice, right? Since this whole event, the way I understood is about how the faculties are kind of cross-trained, right, or enlightened with some new topics, new technologies, or new areas of research, so that they are always in the forefront of learning new things and upscaling themselves, right? And of course, innovating in that space through their research and their practical experiences. So the first and foremost, as I said in my inaugural address, is of course my big thanks to all of you to challenge the status quo. I hope what you all know what it means, right? So if we are happy about where we are today, right, and be complacent about where we are, then the entire humanity will never evolve, right? And will never. So the whole innovation, the research and development, the upskilling, reskilling, right? All this goes for a toss if you are complacent with your status quo, and you are complacent with where you are and happily just sitting on it and not doing anything, right? So that's not good for any society. That's not good for any individual, right? And that's not good for the entire nation. So challenging the status quo is the primary thing that I expect, and these kind of events are again a proof point that yes, so we as an individual as well as we as an institute, academic institute, and as a society are learning new things, are innovating on new things, and improving the society as we move along, right? So the picture with some of these logos, right, may give you some light bulbs, right? So it's like the moment you see these logos and these images, something goes in your thought process, right? So I would like to hear from you, what are the thought process that comes to your mind when you see this screen, logos in the screen, these different images in the screen? As I said, this is icebreaker, so which means I need to, this is the first test of how interactive this forum is. Anything, and believe me, there is nothing right or wrong. Okay, so you can say anything which you feel when you look at the screen. Anything, anybody. Have you ever come across these companies, Kodak, Nokia, Blockbuster? Blockbuster may not be, I mean, if unless people have, but at least Nokia and Kodak, I'm sure, particularly people, I was told we have people from MBA department as well. So any of you from MBA would have a better view of these two companies. Any of you, why Kodak is not there in the photography business anymore? Do you know why? And believe me, they were the first company to invent digital photography. But today, you know who is the number one in digital photography? It's Samsung, okay, the mobile phone manufacturer. Because if you look at, so that's what this whole image is talking about, what you see on the screen, right? So all these companies, be it Nokia, Kodak, or Blockbuster, right? What they were very happy with their initial legacy success, right? And they though they saw an imminent technology revolution that's coming up, right? Though some of their research scholars, research scientists were the first ones to build next gen technologies in their space, be it in digital camera or be it in the mobile phone and mobile network, right? And Blockbuster is more into the video lending business, right? So these companies were very complacent, happy with their initial success, and were not doing anything about the new technology that were going to revolutionize, disrupt the whole industry, including their business. So they failed to see that, and you know what happened after that, right? So many other companies which probably 10 to 15 years back never even existed are now the top companies in the world, right? So what they did, which the big B's of Nokia and Kodak missed, is they failed to see the technology revolution that's coming in the forefront, and they were just sitting on it and doing nothing, right? So that's not a sign of a good organization. That's not a sign of a good individual, right? So the whole thought process of challenging the status quo starts with the individual, right? And as an individual, what have I done to upskill myself or reskill myself so that I'm in the race for the new technologies or for the new employability that is coming up in my society, right, or in my country. So what have I done? So that's the $1 million question that we as an individual has to ask ourselves, and also we as an academic institution, or for that matter any organization, has to ask itself. So these are the organizations, Nokia, Kodak, and Blockbuster, which were happy, right? Just like the folks who are pulling this cart, right? They feel that they can just pull it through and they don't need any help. So in the whole process, what happens? They either slow down or they don't reach the destination on time, and by the time there is somebody else so with their own products and their own successes. So that's the whole message that it's trying to convey, and that's how I thought I would start my address, saying that at any point in time, and this is something that we'll have to do continuously, and with the kind of revolution that's happening around, so we cannot be complacent with what we have today. So tomorrow we'll bring in a new set of technologies, a new set of learnings that we need to imbibe on, and that we need to upskill ourselves with as we move along. So with that note, I would get started unless anybody has anything to add to what I just said.
Sir, kindly see the chat box also, sir.
Okay, chat box. Since it's in the full screen view, it's become, if I put it in the presentation mode, then I'm not able to see the chat box. I'm not able to see the video. So that's a challenge that I will have. So if somebody can read the chat box and help me, that will help. Otherwise, I'll have to. So can somebody help with that?
Sir, Jisnu Prasad, participant, he told like Kodak decided to cling on to analog cameras for too long and eventually lost the game. Nokia too has a similar story. When its competitors started focusing on data and internet, Nokia didn't care. The company instead continued to focus on its hardware.
Okay, great. So great points. I mean, there is no harm in unmuting and talking. I mean, it'll help if people can talk, because I'm not able to see the chat window for whatever reason. So when I put it in the presentation mode, I'm not able to see the chat window.
Okay, sir.
Okay, so I would rather prefer people talking than putting it on chat, because then it becomes very interactive. Okay, and my apologies for what reason I'm not able to see the chat window. Okay.
Okay, sir.
Yeah, sorry. Moving on. So we all have been through accessing internet, right, for ages, and the way internet has evolved, right, from the 80s when it originated, right, it has gone through a lot of transformation, right? So right from the days of human to human communications in the pre-internet era, where it phone and SMS and again mostly it's landline phones, right, and the early feature phones that came. So these were the only modes of communication, and then came the World Wide Web, right, where you had from human to human, you moved on to a smart networks, where the content started sharing between people, right, through email or through some websites that they built, right, and soon you saw a lot of content that were getting populated onto the internet. People were sharing emails, right, in the very early days, and that's when it used to be called the World Wide Web. And that also transformed with the smart IT platforms and services, with e-commerce and various e-productivity tools that came up, which we call it as the Web 2.0, right? And then with that, came a revolution around 2000, probably 4 or 5, when the whole social media started evolving. And then 2004 is when Mark Zuckerberg uh, kind of discovered or invented Facebook, a social networking app, when he was in Harvard doing his graduation, right? So the whole Sky, Facebook, YouTube, they completely democratized content sharing, right? So the way in which people were sharing content one to one completely changed over a period of time, and where the one to many communication started happening, and that started bringing in huge volume of content, right? And from internet of services, we moved along to internet of people, because more and more people started interacting through this medium of internet, right? And in between came the smartphones as well, so which again disrupted the whole industry, where you started accessing information at the fingertip, and more and more such contents were evolving and sharing between people, right? And with the advent of sensors technologies, right, smart devices, we moved into an era of internet of things, right? So right so from human to human to www to web 2.0 to social media, then to now we are at a state where not just people, the machines are also talking to each other, right? And thanks to internet of things, that's enabling the machines to talk to each other, and that's again uh, one creating a totally different market and a totally different art of possibility of leveraging the data which these machines are sharing among each other, right, and with people, and which is bringing about different kind of automation and different kind of improvisation, optimization in the industrial space as well as in the consumer space, where each and every people are impacted by it, right? And with that, of course, what is next, right? So internet of things is at the forefront of the revolution as we speak right now. And we also have blockchain as an adjacent technology, which is coming together and creating the wow factor in the industry, right? So this is how, if you look back, how the internet has evolved in the last 3 to 4 decades, right? And if you look at now, right, between 2003 and sorry, between 2003 and now, right, for the number of people versus the connected things, say for that means for every individual, the number of connected devices that he or she had, right, was only zero point 0.1 in 2003. And by 2020, which just got over, so that number is 30, which means for every individual, there are 30 connected things that are there in our planet today. So that's a humongous change, right? So from 0.1 to 30, the ratio of number of people and the connected resources, so which can give you enough insight about how this whole space is evolving, right? And just 5 years back, the statistics was that still 99.9% of the things were not connected, and in the last 5 years, right, there is a jump of close to about 10 times, right? So where for every individual we have 30 connected devices, and that connected devices could be as simple as your mobile phone, as simple as your smart TV, your smart fridge, your Fitbit, any connected device that you buy from the market today, right? So there are so many, and these are not just ones that you use at home. So these are also the ones which are there in the industrial space, right? So we'll talk about that as we move along. But just to give a summary of this particular slide, the number of connected things that have come up in our space, in our network for every individual has grown so much from 0.1 to 30 in the last 17 years. And the real growth has happened in the last 5 years. And you will see double of this in the next 3 years. So which means by 2025, this number, I won't be surprised if this number even doubles. Okay, so that's the precursor of where we are heading to. So which means there are billions and billions of things that will get connected through different networks for every other individual that's living in this planet, right? And what happens when all these devices come together, right? So they generate a lot of data, right? And what do you do with those data, right? So statistics says that from civilization till 2003, right, humankind has created close to about 5 exabyte of data, right? And you can Google and find out what exabyte means and what is the volume of data that we are talking about, right? So till 2003, this is the volume of data that was created. So any guess on what will be the current state of affairs? Any wild guess? How much of data that is generated today? Most of us would have smartphones with us. Do you know how much of data smartphone generates today, apart from the data that you of course generate using the smartphone? So which is you making some payments, or you sharing something in your WhatsApp, be it a video or be it audio, right? So apart from whatever that you individually share using your smartphone, what is the amount of data that each smartphone generates beyond what you generate? Any guess? So again, there is a statistics that smartphone generates close to about 2.5 times the data that you are generating by using your smartphone on an everyday basis. Okay, so which means if you are generating 100 megabytes, or sorry, 100 gigabytes of data every day, right? For example, right? So your phone would be generating 2.5 times of that every day. So because these phones have comes with so many sensors, right? So which we wouldn't have even thought about in our past, right? So they come with a gyroscope, they come with tilt sensor, they come with ambient sensor, they come with temperature sensor. There are so many things. They accelerometers, right? So and they do have GPS, they do have a compass, everything, right? Bluetooth. So many different sensors are packaged into this smartphone, right? So which is a walking set of sensors that we carry every day in, day out, right? So and they all are generating data in the backend, and they are of course being collected by the manufacturers or collected by the network connectivity providers like the Airtels of the world or the Geos of the world, or yeah, for that matter even BSNL, right? So they are generating so much of data. So don't ask me what they do with this data, right? So there are different perception on what's done with that data, right? So coming back to this whole point, right? Still 2003, it was 5 exabyte of data that was generated by the humankind altogether, put together, right? And today, if you speak, that amount of data is generated every 54 minutes. So something that took the whole mankind to generate till 2003, right, now gets generated every 54 minutes. And this statistics is only going to increase as we move along, as more and more sensors and more data are going to come into the foray, right? So what's revolutionizing all this, right? So there are three laws that most of you would have heard about, right? Moore's law, Kumi's law, and Metcalfe's law. So these are the three laws which put together will give you a view of how and why this revolution is happening. So anybody has any idea of what is Moore's law? I'm sure you would have read about this in your people in the computer science engineering would have learned about Moore's law for sure. I mean, you can unmute and speak, as I said, instead of putting anything on the chat window, because I'll not be able to see that.
So number of transistors, it is getting doubling every 2 years.
Okay, so which means the processing speed, right, of your computing device, be it a laptop, computer, or any device, right, will double. The processing power will double every 2 years, right? So if you guys have come through the evolution of computers, you would know where we are today, right? In the last 20 years, things have moved so much, right? So a small computer today, you can hold it in your palm, right? And it will have the same processing power which 20 years back was there only with large computers or large servers for that matter, right? So now you will have it in a palm-sized computer itself. So that's what Moore's law is all about, right? So with the invention in semiconductor technologies, right? How that has enabled in improving the processing power of your computer so that more and more data gets processed in a much faster way, right? So that is one good reason why there is so much of revolution, so much of change, which is contributing to generating this much of data, right? And the next law is called the Kumi's law, right? So which is all about, because most of these devices and most of these systems are battery operated. So which means the energy that you need to operate them, right, will fall by a factor of 2 every 18 months, right? So which means today, if you need a battery power of say 100 to operate a huge enterprise building, you need say 50 megawatts, right? So tomorrow, with that the battery revolution that's happening, after 18 months, right, you will just need half of it, okay, back by a factor of 2. So half of it after every 18 minutes. So that's a revolution that's happening in the battery industry, or in general the industry that is providing the energy source for different computing needs, right? So the battery need is also coming down while the compute power is also going up, right? And adding to this, the Metcalfe's law, so which talks about what is the effect of networks that that is getting generated today. So Metcalfe law states that, right, for every device or every node in the network, the value doubles or squares, right, itself based on the number of connects that it has. So which means if I am on Facebook or I am on WhatsApp, right, if I have 10 connects, right, so then value of my person as an individual value of myself within that network is square of 10, 100. So which means I can impact up to 100 people, right? So the more the number of nodes that I'm connected to, the more the number of people that I'm connected to, more my value in that network, right? So one a Moore's law, which talks about improving the processing power every 2 years, right? And then Kumi's law, which talks about how the energy consumption is coming down. And then there is a Metcalfe's law, which talks about how your network power is, because end of the day, these are all going to get connected to each other. So be it people or devices or anything, right? Physical devices, anything will get connected, right? So the value of them will go up as more and more devices connect to each other, right? So a very simple example is, even in the olden days, we used to have these fax machines. So imagine if you bought a fax machine, right? But nobody else has a fax machine, then your fax machine is a useless device, right? Because you will not be able to send the fax to anybody unless there is somebody else who has a fax machine. So until more and more people buy fax machines, right, and the network of fax machines enlarges, right, the value of the fax machine is zero. Similarly, tomorrow, if more and more IoT sensors and devices gets connected, the more they get connected, the more the value of that network. So these three laws put together is what are the forces behind what we call it as Internet of Things. So whatever that is possible today through Internet of Things, and that will be possible in the upcoming future, is attributed to these three laws fundamentally. Okay, so how many of you think that this is an information that you are hearing for the first time, or you had this before as well? Have you heard this in any other forum, or have you come across this? Is there anything that you would like to add here? Because as I said, my background is more on the practical knowledge. So academically, I may not be there yet. So if you guys, and I treat this session as a mutual learning. So if there is anything that you can add here, I would more than welcome you.
Sir, in the chat box, some are telling this is the first time they are hearing, and some they heard while they read about big data, sir.
Okay.
Yes, sir.
Sure. Thank you. All right. So what are these data? So there is no point in collecting the data which is not going to help you in any way, right? So all these sensors, all these network people, you keep exchanging so much of video and images across WhatsApp, across Facebook, right? And in your personal social networking, right? And there is a professional social networking, LinkedIn, and now all of a sudden there are so many devices that are coming into the foray, and with all Internet of Things, so much of data is generated, right? So unless this data is of use to people, to the institutes, to the government, right, to the industry, nobody will bother about these data, right? And then there is no need to even collect this data. So for us to see what is the impact that this data would create, right? Again, to give you a comparison, right? Probably the MBA students will be able to grasp this much better. To just give a perspective of what this data has an impact at a global level, right? So we thought we'll use GDP as the yardstick to measure that, right? So the entire GDP of US, and this is though an old number, but it will give you a lot of comparison, right? Used to be 17 trillion, okay, and the GDP of China was close to about 10 trillion, right? And if in comparison to that, the value that IoT generates, right, was somewhere between 14 to 20 trillion. It's a very conservative number though, okay, so but it ranges between 14 to 20 million, so which is closely double of China's GDP. So that's the value that IoT can generate and have an impact across the industry and across the continents. Okay, so and you can see how this 14.4 million is split into, right? They are split through different I mean, how this value is generated, where this value is generated, right? It is generated from the customer experience. This is generated in the financial sectors. This is generated in the healthcare industries, right? So how these different IoT implementations across industries are spitting out data which is generating value, right? How you can compare this vis-a-vis the GDP of the two largest economy in the world, right? US and China, will give you a perspective of what is the true value of the data that is coming out of these sensors, right? End of the day, they have to make, or they are making, this kind of global impact. And that's the reason why everybody is behind these technologies like Internet of Things, right? So because more the data, more the insight, and more the insight, the better the performance that I will have as an industry running different my own business, right? So that's the impact this data generates, without which nobody would be interested to even look at this technology, right? They are just as good as any other technology. So that's the perspective that I thought I'll share, so that you are aware of what it can generate, right? And now coming to the actual meat, right? So of what in each of these industries IoT is transforming today, right? So if you look at, for example, healthcare industry, right? So they are trying to see how the complete industry can be revolutionized. So from hospital visits to proactive remote health. So which means healthcare is not treated as something which is reactive in nature, right? So people are moving towards proactive health, and it's becoming a kind of trend today, right? So how you can proactively take care of your health and avoid going to even hospitals. So I'll give you some examples, right? So for example, if in US and in some of the developed countries, and you would have seen that in the recent COVID news as well, right? They don't have as many beds as the developing countries have, because their the average life expectancies is also high, and the sophistication is so high that they never required so many beds, right? So every hospital had limited beds, very limited beds, and every hospital's productivity was measured based on how effectively they use the beds, right? So which means if a person is undergoing a surgery, and if he is post his surgery, if he is there in the hospital for a long time, right, then the value of that bed comes down, because their their logic is, if the person has been operated in the next 1 week, they should be sent home, in which case, I mean, sent home, of course, after getting him all right, right? So and any follow up care that is required, if that can be done remotely, right? So that will largely cut down the cost that they incur per bed, right? So which means if a person after critical surgery can be sent home in 3 days, so that the follow-up can happen remotely. So which means from home, if we can connect, and if I can get the vitals of the person, be it the blood pressure or his sugar levels, right? There are umpteen smart devices which are there in the market today, so which can measure this the BP and the sugar levels, and it can send back the data to the physicians or the caretakers, so that they can remotely collect this data on a periodic basis, right, and remotely monitor the vitals of the person as if he is there right next to him, right? And with all the video calling facilities, and with the smart devices put together, the care can happen remotely, right? And worst case, they may send a nurse to the person to attend to, if the caretakers there personal caretakers cannot operate these devices, right? Still, it has a very good impact on them, because now they can have the bed allocated to other person who is waiting in the queue, who's critically ill, right? And also the hospitals will gain out of that, right, without compromising on the life of the people, right? Because that is also important. Otherwise, the regulations and the legal issues start popping up. So that's one way in which IoT is revolutionizing healthcare, because by bringing in those smart devices, right, which can measure the vitals of the people, different vitals, and they can send the data back to the doctors remotely through their mobile phone or through some built-in device that are given to them, right? That's one example in which things are happening proactively, right? And the other example is around clinical trials, right? So if you remember, every drug that gets manufactured, and you would have heard a lot about that during or hearing about it in the COVID scenario today, right? These vaccines are developed, right? And any drug that is developed, it has to go through the phase 1, phase 2 clinical trials. So which means they have to be tried out on a given population, a sample population, right, before ensuring that they are fit to be administered to a larger population, right? So that's a mandate that all these pharma companies are supposed to go through, right? And that's the contract that they have signed up with the governing authorities in their respective countries, right? They have to follow that. Now, most often what happens is people who sign up for these clinical trials, right, are the ones who kind of live and breathe with them for close to about 2 to 3 years, right? They have to adhere to the prescriptions that are given by these pharma companies, right? You should take these tablets twice in a day, right? And you have to do this as a precursor, and you have to do this after taking the medicine, right? So there are some protocols that the patient who has signed up for the clinical trial has to follow to measure the effectiveness of that drug. So most often what happens, people, though they sign up for the clinical trials for different reasons, for money or whatever, right, they don't follow these protocols strictly. And there is no way for the pharma companies to go and monitor this in person, right? Because these are done in like huge numbers. So probably 50,000 to 100,000 patients, a mass clinical trial also happens where so many people get enrolled. And if they have to go and physically monitor each one of them, then it takes a huge amount of money, right? And every delay in getting those vital information, right, from those patients, right, every 1 day delay causes close to about $1.5 million to the company, right? And imagine if they don't get the data for a whole month, and if you have this delay, you can just multiply and find out what is the loss that the pharma companies goes through, right? So how IoT is helping that, right? So with the advent of the sensor technologies and the smart devices, right? So both camera based, right, and contact and contactless and all this, right? So and with mobile app along with smart devices, now they can monitor the adherence of the patients, whether they're taking the medicines on time or not, right? And that data, vital data that is coming back to the pharma companies, is helping them a lot in optimizing their whole clinical trial process. So which means the data that's usually they were getting earlier were either wrong data or incomplete data, which was kind of an useless data to them. Now the data quality is also high, the frequency is also high, the adherence is also high. So which is now helping them to shorten the whole clinical trial cycles, right? Because they are able to get quality data about their clinical trial much faster than how they used to get it in the past, right? So that's a big change again that's coming up in the healthcare industry, and that's the reason why these COVID vaccines were all rolled out much faster, right? Because some of these trials were done in a much faster way using these technologies, right? And Some of those clinical trials were deferred because these drugs were deemed to be fit to be administered, and that's why they are coming in, and they have already come in, and people have started administering those drugs today, right? So similarly, there's a lot that's happening in manufacturing, energy, retail, and transport industries. Okay, so some of which I'll talk about in manufacturing. If people from the mechanical background would know, right? So every rotating equipment that you have in the shop floor, right, goes through a wear and tear, right? So which means they need periodic maintenance so that your production line doesn't get interrupted. The production line is continuously operating 24/7, right? And there is seamless operation, right? So that's the ideal expectation. But what's happening is at times when some of these rotating equipments stop working, right, the whole production line goes for a toss, and based on the nature of business you are in, it can incur somewhere between $1 million to $100 million per day, okay, depending upon what kind of business you are in. So what do you do about it? Either you have to do a periodic maintenance, right, or you need to ensure that you can do some predictive maintenance as well. So which means you can predict, if you have the ability to predict when my rotating equipment will go down, right? If you have that intelligence, then you will take upfront care about that production line, and you will do something about it, right? And what is the essential thing for you to make that prediction is the data about the rotating equipment, right? So how do you collect, say for example, how do you collect the vibration levels of your motor, right? So which kind of rotates the conveyor belt in a production line, for example, right? So how do you collect that vibration data, and how do you analyze that vibration data to find out how your motor is performing, right? Because the whole performance of the motor depends on so many other factors, including the environment, right? So if the whole environment is a very, say for example, humid and hot environment, right? So that also has an impact on the performance of your rotating equipment, right? So the more sooner it gets heated, the more sooner it will get impacted. So for you to collect this data, you need some sensors, so which can be deployed on those rotating equipments, and you collect those data, you make those analysis, right, and find out what is going wrong and find that out upfront, so that you can predict when this machine is going to go down. So that is also enabled through different sensors which the companies have started manufacturing. Companies like ABB, Siemens, Hitachi, and all these guys have started manufacturing those sensors which can be attached to these rotating equipments, which will collect the data and send it to you, and you can analyze those data and do various things, right? So that is completely, again, moving the whole manufacturing industry from a kind of reactive maintenance to a more prescriptive or predictive or prescriptive maintenance, right? So, and what is enabling that is the whole thing about IoT, right? How the sensors are collecting this data and how you are able to make those senses or those insights. So similarly in energy, retail, transport, I can talk on this for the whole day, right? So there are so many things that's happening, and I'm sure you would have read that in your various academic streams of how IoT is enabling. So if any one of you can give any example that you see where IoT is creating an impact on any of the industry, I would be more than happy to hear that. Anybody has any view of where IoT is really helping?
So, an answer in all smart environments.
Sorry?
in all smart environments.
All smart environments. Okay, good, good. All right. So all this again, right, is giving birth to new business models, right? So which means earlier, if for example, right, Rolls-Royce, Boeing, not Boeing, I would say Rolls-Royce and Pratt and Whitney, all these are the companies which manufacture aircraft engines. Okay, and they used to sell these aircraft engines as one-time product sell, right? Now they are getting into a different business model altogether. So which means how they can sell the aircraft engine as a service, right? So earlier, a few years back, they will just sell an aircraft engine and say, for example, Lufthansa or Boeing or any aircraft manufacturer will buy the engine from Rolls-Royce, fit it into their aircraft and sell it to Lufthansa, Air India, or Indigo, anybody, right? Their own AMC providers who will provide the services, and that's how they used to run the business. So now Rolls-Royce is getting into a fly by the hour, okay, or power by the hour business. So which means they will no more sell an engine to you. They will charge you for every hour of flight that you take, and they will ensure that if the engine goes down, they will replace it at no additional cost to you. You only have to spend money for the time that you have used the engine, okay, and it is their responsibility to make sure that the engine is up and running for you. So this is a complete different way in which these companies are now doing business, right? So how do you think, and you can take for that example, you can take any even consumer electronics equipment. Say for example, tomorrow if IFB or LG start selling wash cycle as a service, which means for every cycle of washing machine, right, and you use it, right, for every cycle they will charge you this many rupees. You don't have to pay 30,000 rupees, 40,000 rupees to buy a sophisticated washing machine for you, right? You just buy 1 rupee and take the washing machine, bring it home, and every time you use it, you will be charged in your account. They will charge you, say, 100 rupees or whatever is that, right, amount. So for them to get into that business, right, what is for IFB, LG, or Rolls Royce, anybody, right? For them to get into that business, what is essential for them is to get the data about how their product is getting used, right? If I as an IFB give you a washing machine, right, and if I have an intelligent mechanism, smartness built into the washing machine, that every time you operate the machine, right, I know for how long it has run, right, and in what setting it has run, and how much of load, whether it was overloaded or it was adequately loaded. All this, there are sensors today in the washing machine. Some of those washing machines are smart, right? Digitally smart. They all need to do is collect this data and send it to me, to my servers. It will be in a cloud or anywhere, right? We'll come to that. So if I can collect the data, right, and I can have that real-time data, then I know that so Emanathan has used his washing machine appropriately as per the product guidelines that I have shared, and he has used the right detergents which I have prescribed, right, and he has placed the washing machine in the right angle and the right height and all that, because they also come with accelerometer and gyroscopes to see if they can get that data also. So without all this data, I can seamlessly, if you comply to all this, then I will charge you 100 rupees. If you don't comply to any one of them, then I will charge a penalty. So all those contracts we would have gone through it, right, and signed up for. So that is the model in which all these companies wants to go towards, right? So how do you enable all this is by collecting the required data about your product, which is there in the field. And without those data, I cannot do anything. And how is that data collected today? Through different sensors, through different IoT devices, which are communicating to the internet through either my home network, right? So because I have to pair my washing machine with my home network, or the washing machine itself might come up in the future with a SIM card so that it can dial up and send the data directly to the cloud. Either way, right? So this is what IoT, up till now I have just given you a glimpse of how IoT is impacting the various business, how IoT is helping the product companies, be it Philips, Rolls Royce, or anybody, right, to move into a services business than just selling a product. So because when you get into a services business, the kind of engagement you have with your customer is a very long engagement. It's not that I've just sold and I forgot about the customer. If you get into a contract, service contract like this, it will be like usually for few years, right? So now you have a customer sticking to you for a few years, and that is what any company would want, right? So this is on the B2C or B2B segment as well, right? This applies to both. So this is how IoT is revolutionizing it, right? Now, having said all this, until this point, I never asked a question about what is Internet of Things. So what in your opinion is Internet of Things? Again, no right or wrong answer. So please feel free to say anything. What in your opinion is Internet of Things? This crowd seems to be a very silent crowd.
Sir, answers in the chat box, sir. Connecting sensors, softwares, and other things.
Okay, very good.
It is network of physical things.
Network of physical things. Okay, great. Any other? Is it something new, or this has been there for ages?
So one more answer, cyber physical interface.
Cyber physical interface. Okay. Okay. Great. So it's all about how do you bring in intelligence to any physical asset, right? It could be as dumb as a toothbrush, right? And all the way up to I would say an aircraft engine, right? So the intelligence can be built on a toothbrush as well, and the intelligence and smartness can be built on an aircraft engine as well. An aircraft engine which has close to about 400 to 500 different sensors that goes into a single engine. Okay. So that's the level of complexity that it can have, and it can have a very simple way in which you put couple of sensors in your washing machine, or for that matter in your fridge or anything, right, as a retrofit sensors. So long back, I think in my previous this one, if you see this Amazon Dash, right? So it was a simple sensor that Amazon came up with a few years back, right? If you take this and stick it onto your washing machine, right? And every time if you want to order detergents, right? You just press this button. That's all. Okay, and this small device connects to your through your home network, right? Your home modem, and it sends the request to Amazon. And if it is paired up with your Amazon account, the detergent gets shipped to you at your doors in 2 days time with just one button press. This was a very starting conventional way in which Amazon tried to kind of create some smartness in the washing machines. Okay, and there were multiple such smart devices that Amazon created and this was about like 5-6 years back. Okay, and today the smartness has gone into the washing machine itself. In some of the washing machines in the Western countries today, they can order washing machine, I mean detergents and the consumables directly. Okay, to uh, through the home network and sending it to the retailer of choice. It could be Amazon, it could be Flipkart, or you can configure whatever you want to configure, right? And it'll directly send those requests, right? So that's how is it enabled? I mean, because there is some sensors that are put into these physical devices, right? So which is collecting some data, and how those sensors are connected. As I said, they can be connected through a gateway, where a mobile device itself can act as a gateway, right? So for example, if I want to pair a Bluetooth device, right, and through that Bluetooth device if I want to connect to internet, right, so then that mobile device becomes your gateway, right? So because the Bluetooth can only talk in the Bluetooth language, in the Bluetooth protocol, right? And your mobile already has the Bluetooth capability, so, and it also has a Wi-Fi, and it also has a SIM card with the data plan. So which means on the northern side, the mobile can connect to internet, and the southern side, it can connect to any Bluetooth device. So you can pair up with that device. So similarly, any sensor will have these two connectivities, one southbound and one northbound, right? And it will communicate with either the gateway, or if there are intelligent devices. When I say intelligent smart devices, which has got the communication module built in to talk directly to internet, then they can talk directly to internet as well, right? And they can send the data directly to that. So this level of smartness in a device, right, depends upon the kind of sensors and kind of devices that are put into it, right, and what kind of communication module that are packaged into that device, right, which are required for a particular purpose, right? So if I just have to interact with a Bluetooth device, I don't have to have other communication protocols and facilities in my device. All I need is a BLE, right, or Bluetooth connectivity. That's all. And then you collect this data, right, and you pass it on to some cloud storage, because for you to store these many petabytes of data, you'll be running out of hard disks, right? So you have to definitely send it to the cloud, where storage can grow vertically and horizontally based on your need, right? So and then once you collect the data, what do you do about that? You need to do various analysis, right? So that's when our people who have expertise on big data analytics and data science come into the picture, because they know how to churn the data, right, and to generate business insights. So that's when it completes the whole cycle, right? So just putting a sensor on a toothbrush, right, or any device for that matter, physical device for that matter, is incomplete without getting useful insights from the data that you collect. Without that, it's an useless exercise. We don't need any smartness built into it, right? So why would Colgate or Oral-B or anybody put a sensor on the toothbrush, right? So it is only to see how people are using their brush, and while using the brush, what is the wear and tear that it causes, right, to the brush, and accordingly how that information can help them in designing new models of toothbrush, right, which will be suited for those specific people, right? So the whole companies, these different consumer electronics or consumer goods, or even the industrial companies, they are all moving away from selling what they manufacture. Gone are the times. Now they are forced to sell only those which the customers like. And how do they get that information about what the customer likes? Are through these different indirect mediums, right? The behavior of their consumers or their customers, how they use their products, gives them enough insights to see how they can innovate on their product. So imagine if this intelligence was with Kodak and with Nokia, right? So they would have revolutionized their product much before anybody would have been thought through, right? So these two companies would have been in the forefront in their respective industries today. So one, this whole loopback mechanism of collecting the data and providing the data and the insight at the right time is what Internet of Things is all about. And why it's happening, right? Because the affordability of sensors, thanks to Moore's law, right, and the connectivity, thanks to the internet boom, and now internet is kind of spreading out to each and every corner of the globe, right? And cloud computing, of course. So because the large volume of data, as we saw in the previous slides, the volume of data that gets connected, right, is exabytes, petabytes in nature, and for you to store and process, you need huge compute power and storage power. Cloud is the only answer to that, right? And the whole technology behind churning out this data is all big data analytics, right? And of course, contributing to all this is essentially you and me, who are the users of these technologies, right? And uh, uh, how do we play our role in sharing those data, right? And all this are making IoT a possibility today, right? And there is more that's coming up as we speak, which will revolutionize this whole space, right? So I will pause here to see if any questions, or if I have to take any diversion. Am I on the right track? Is it as per the expectation, or is there any specific area where you would like me to go deeper? Please, this is the time to speak up.
Participants, if you have any queries, kindly unmute and ask.
Yeah, anything that you would like to hear apart from what I have said so far, so that will help me in channeling my thoughts and sharing what you would like to hear. Anybody, any thoughts? I mean, people from different departments. As I said, you can ask anything. If I have an answer, I will definitely give it a shot. No?
No, sir.
Okay. All right. So I'll move on with my pace in case if you find anything which requires discussion debate, please bring up in the chat window, and madam, please let me know. Okay. So
Okay.
sure. So as I said, IoT has started, and though it's I won't say it's in its infancy. It's more about getting to the next level of improvising, right, and getting to the next level of creating a revolution, right. So and it's a journey. It's a journey that in some industry it has matured to some extent. In some industries, it is still picking up. In some countries, it is still picking up. In some countries, they have matured a lot. Okay, and they are at a different maturity curve altogether, right? So it's a journey. As I said, it starts with the physical thing. Then how do you put sensors and make them connected, right? And you put those sensors so that you can get the data and you can control them, right? So for example, this whole connected vehicle, right? So, and that is again a big boom, and there's a lot that being talked about, right? Driverless car, autonomous truck, and all that with Tesla and every other automobile companies are moving into this foray, right? One big shift that's happening is, of course, in the electric vehicle, EV vehicle, right? And the other thing is on autonomous. So these are the two key trends that's happening in the automobile space today, right? So if you look at how IoT is helping these, and if you take an industry, right, there are so many different people that come together and work together, right, to make that industry successful, right? And IoT is not just impacting any one people or any one group of people. It's impacting everybody today, the way we, and that's what you see in this slide, right? So from a physical dumb asset, a truck, right, a traditional truck, how it is helping to move, how IoT is helping to move towards a connected truck system, right? So if I have to control my fleet of trucks, right, so that I maximize my profit out of those trucks, right, and ensure that they are utilized to the maximum, right? There are various systems that comes into the play, right? Starting with, of course, the sensor that you put in, which is collecting data about which route this trucks are taking today, right? And what is the right quality. There are sensors that are put in the tires to check the appropriate air pressure, so that the drivers are indicated much before the tire goes flat, right? And they can go and recheck and increase the pressure, air pressure in the tires, right? And the whole ride quality, is the driver behavior proper, right? Because insurance are connected to that. And if you are using a behavior based insurance system, right, so wherein if the insurance company says that if your driver are not properly driving, then your premium will go high. And if your driver is adhering to all the good practices of driving, then I will give you a discount on your premium, right? So because it has a benefit for the insurance company also, because if something goes wrong on the road, right, and this company makes an insurance claim, the insurance company has to pay out the claims, right? So they don't want to pay out claims for wrong reasons. If somebody is a drunken drive case, or if somebody is a amateur driver who doesn't know how to drive, but he is engaged in taking a truck, right? All this, if there is a mechanism for me to get this data, right, and use this data for different purposes, be it for insurance, or be it for maintenance of my vehicle, right, or be it for ensuring that I am taking the shortest route possible to reach a destination, right? All this, right, requires the right data at the right time, right? Coming in from the truck. So from product to smart connected product, right? All of a sudden you build a system called fleet tracking system, where I can track where the vehicle is at any point in time with the data that is coming in from these different devices, right? And then how I use this data for, say for example, if I am into a business of leasing this vehicle, right? And I will lease my vehicle based on the pay per use manner, right? And as I said in the beginning, for me to lease my truck in the pay per use, I need to know how my truck is being used, and for that I need to know what is the data that is coming from there, which will tell me how my truck is being used, right? So there are so many different systems. On the right hand side, we move into a stage called systems of systems, right? So left hand side, from product to smart connected product, that is the usual IoT foundation. So which means, how do you smart enable your existing product, right? Be it a truck, or be it a fridge, or washing machine, or even a toothbrush, whatever it is, right? And then how do you help me in creating a system? And then the major value is, as I said, in an automobile industry, there are different systems that comes into the play. So if I want to create a leasing company, then I need to know, have enough information about the traffic. I need to have enough information about the weather data, right? And so that my truck doesn't get exposed to extreme weathers, right? And also the fleet management system, so which will give me whether the truck was serviced in the right time or not, has, and for every so many mileage it is supposed to go into the maintenance workshop and get it serviced. Has it done? So which means I have to integrate with the service management company and get the data to find out when was the last time my truck was serviced. All this integration of different systems have to come together to make help me in setting up a leasing company where I operate this without anybody's intervention, right? So that's why the extreme right side is the system of systems, where these different systems, that today you might be having a fleet tracking system, and somebody might be monitoring the weather data, for example the weather.com, or the one that our famous weatherman does, right? We will have to integrate with his systems to collect the data. Only when you do all this, you get the collective intelligence which helps you to do something for your business, right? Something useful for your business. So that's how I tie these together, right? And in some countries, the people are still in the foundation stage, some industries, and in some industries like aerospace, they have moved on to the emerging IoT side, where they have already integrated with the other systems to make useful insights for them. Okay, that's why I call it a journey, depending upon where the organization is, where the people are, and where they have to move to be efficient. Okay, and this is the latest trend. I mean, though the data is last year's data point, but more or less it remains the same as we are just starting 2021. So in IoT, right? So the majority focus, and this is published by Gartner, okay, and they call it as the hype cycle for any technology. So the various things like digital twin, IoT security, IoT edge architecture, IoT platform, right? So these are all the different topics within different areas within IoT, where there will be a lot of focus in the coming years, right? So if anybody wants to pursue a career in IoT, right, these are some of the areas to focus on, and how they will mature over the period of next few years. Okay, so if I want to just take one example from this, right, the digital twin. So digital twin is all about how do you create a digital avatar of a physical asset, right? So for example, again, if I want to take the example which will be close to our mechanical group, would be a motor, okay, a hydroelectric motor or any motor which is a rotating equipment, right? If I want to study the behavior of that motor, right, and make design changes to that motor, right, as a I'm the manufacturer of that motor, right, and if I want to make design changes to that motor, and for that I can get the data from my engineering and R&D department, right, which is based on a very small scope of research that they do, right? But if the same thing I can get from a large population of customers that to whom I sell this motors to, right? From their plant, how they are operating, and that operational data, the behavior of that motor, if I can collect the data, right, and feed it to my digital avatar of that motor, right, then I can study many things which otherwise will not come from a small group of engineering team, because they can only think so much. But if I can get the real-time data of how my motor is operating in a shop floor, in a factory, right, so that will give me a lot of insights, practical insights of how the motor is behaving, right, performing, and that information I can feed it to my digital avatar. Okay, so which is say, for example, if I have a 3D image or a 3D view of the motor with me, right, and if they say that the continuous vibration level, if it peaks to certain point, right, the motor requires frequent service. If that is an insight that is coming in, and if I want to get that insight, feed it to my digital avatar to see what design changes I can make, right, I can get this real-time data quickly and feed it to my 3D view of the motor, and that will tell me, right, what is the design change that I should make so that the vibration level comes down, right? So this information nobody can give you if it is only an R&D or engineering team, right? And this will come only from the real field where the motor is operating, right? So if I can create a digital avatar of my equipments which are there in the field and use that information for improvising my product, right? So a product which usually would take 15 months to 18 months to concept to production, right, I can cut it down and I can do that within 6 months. That's a huge savings for me, right? That is what companies are looking for today, and that is how digital twins are helping in the engineering process. Similarly, you can create digital twin for any other process or any other asset, right, for improving your business. That is one stream which has gained a lot of traction, and technology behind that, primary technology behind that is IoT, because the sensor data that is collected and how it is superimposed on top of the engineering data, so that you can simulate the different behaviors with the real-time data, right? So that is what is very important for these companies to improvise on their product, and that's what is one example of what's next that's happening or that will happen in the IoT space. So there are many. You can read these offline. If you just Google the Gartner's hype cycle for IoT, you will get that, and you can look at some of these technologies which where IoT is the foundation for them. Okay. Now, I mean, people who come from the computer science background, right, would understand how a typical architecture would look like, right? And this is a typical reference architecture of an end-to-end IoT implementations. So, which means on the left-hand side you have these devices, right? And as I said, these could be sensors, actuators, right, which can talk to a gateway like your mobile device, or it could be any hardware, right? Because that hardware is the only hardware which understands the left-hand side protocol, which is Zigbee, BLE, right, or any industrial protocol. And on the right-hand side, right, it can understand the language in which the cloud can communicate with it, right? So, and there are different protocols called MQTT, AMQP. So this is like the recent protocols that has come out for the IoT devices to talk to their cloud counterparts, right? Their cloud platforms. So the data that is generated from the sensor that I put in the washing machine, right, has to go through my mobile or my home network, right? And it has to reach to the cloud application that is there deployed in the cloud, right? And for the cloud application to understand that this is coming in from a device, they have a mechanism and they have a protocol that they follow, which is what is any one of them, which is MQTT, AMQP, right? And that gets all the data gets fed in the real time to the cloud platforms, right? And the cloud side platform could be from Microsoft or from AWS or from Google, or you can have your own cloud platform, right? You can just build a server which you deploy it on the cloud, and if it can talk the MQTT language, you can start communicating with your IoT device, right? And you collect the data, right? And with the data, whatever analytics you do, right, you do, and then you integrate with different systems. So as we talk about I am building something, collecting some data to improve my inventory management, right? So that my shelf life is improves, right? Then I have to integrate with the inventory management system, which is already there. So unless I do that, right, that system will not get any intelligence, or you will never improve on the system if I don't integrate with that. So simply collecting the data, analyzing the data, getting the insight, not doing anything with the insight is a useless activity again, right? So what do you do with the insight? You have to do something. So either you improvise your engineering process, which means your design, whatever design flaws that you had, you have to correct that. Or if there are some shortcomings in your inventory management, how do you change that? How do you alter that, right? So that's how the insight gets used by different systems. So that is what completes the whole loop, right? So from collecting the data from the sensor to making a positive impact on the business applications or the consumer's behavior, consumer experience, anything, right, is how the IoT completes the whole loop, right? And all this has to be kind of done in a secure manner. So which means you need to ensure security all the way from device to the cloud to the enterprise systems, right? And that is the primary challenge today which IoT is going through, and there are different solutions that have come up that will come up in the future. Security is a big challenge which all the organizations are struggling with, right? And some have matured solutions for that, some are still trying to figure out what needs to be done. Okay, so this is a kind of three-tier reference architecture of a typical end-to-end IoT project or an end-to-end IoT implementation, I would say. So any questions till now or on this before we move on to the next topic?
Participants, kindly unmute yourself and then ask your queries, please. So far, no queries, sir.
Okay. So have you done any IoT work? I know academic. Do you guys have this subject for any of these semesters, or this is just a research work?
So actually, we in Malana College of Engineering Technology, we are having IoT as a core subject itself, sir.
This is with practicals or it's only theory?
Sir, we are having only theory, sir. But we are encouraging the students to do the IoT projects in their final years and in third years. We have the remaining project managers.
Okay. So any of the faculties who take the subjects, and have they done any sort of experiment, any practicals with IoT, and what has been their experience? Anybody can talk. I mean, there's nothing wrong, right or wrong, as I said. So and I'm also along with you learning this technology. Okay, so it's not that I know everything. So I'm still learning. That there's a long way to go.
Actually, so far we haven't tried, sir.
Okay, okay, great. So I'm not sure whom I'm talking to, madam. Is this in line with what you had expected in this session, or am I completely off the track?
Yes, sir. This is the thing we are expecting, sir.
Okay,
Here on the channel. We'll
okay,
continue this way, sir.
sure, sure.
Okay, sir. Okay, sir.
Yeah, thank you.
Thank you, sir.
Yeah, so the next thing is all about blockchain, right? So so we saw how internet evolved, right, from human to human all the way to machine, right? So that's the evolution in a short of internet, right? From the time two people started talking to each other, to talk to each other, to interact with each other, how they used internet, all the way to how machines are now talking to each other, right? That's the evolution we saw till now, right? Now there is a new technology beast in the mix, in the equation, right? Blockchain. And with IoT and blockchain put together, there is a new era that is evolving, which they call it as Internet of Value. Okay, that's the next thing that you will hear, and it's again a recent term that has been coined, Internet of Value. And the backbone for that is, of course, IoT and blockchain put together, right? And you all know what blockchain is, or you would know in the various sessions that are planned in the next 6 days. So I will not get deeper into what blockchain is all about. In short, it is just a distributed ledger, right? It's like, for if I have to give 100 rupees to my friend, right? If I have to transfer, or if I have to give 100 rupees to my friend who has sold something to me, right? So today, if I have to do it through online medium or through any medium, right, there is a need for a third party entity to validate that, right, and be a proof point that yes, I have given 100 rupees to him, right? And that third party entity is a bank, right? Or it could be an entity like a register office. If I'm buying a land from him, and if I'm paying him for the land, then the sub register department becomes the third party entity, which maintains all the legalities, all the documents, all the facts about that transaction. So which means, even if I have to do something with my friend, I have to depend upon a third party entity like a bank, right? That's the current situation. So what if I can just buy a land or buy something from my friend without the need for any of these third party entities, which means we just limit the transaction only to both of us, that's it, right? And in online we don't have to, because you know how banks are becoming uh, fraudulent banks to some extent, right? Some banks are going bankrupt by themselves, right? We have seen that in the recent past. So with so many happening, the whole trust between two entities, two people, right, which the bank used to maintain itself, is being questioned, right? So how do you bring that trustworthiness seamlessly without the need of a third party entity? is what blockchain is all about, right? Where the transactions are between two entities or any entity, right, gets written into a ledger. Bank also maintains a ledger. It's only that it's a centralized entity. Here it's very distributed, right? So which means if have to do some transaction with somebody, that any information related to that transaction is written into the blockchain, right, in a secured way, so that nobody can tamper with it, because it's only a write once. Okay. And you cannot, and for you to make updates again, then you have to carry out a different transaction, right? And there are different security mechanism to ensure that the blocks can never be altered, right? So given that, then every other transaction between two entities becomes very simple, right? So you just say, for example, if I have to buy a land from somebody, right, the documentation in its digital form can be stored in the blockchain, right? And it's only that the ownership of the document changes from one entity to the other, and that ownership change is a simple transaction. Today, for making that simple transaction, you have to do so many things in the register office. You have to pay, you have to bribe people, you have to do so many things to carry out that simple transaction. The ownership of the house document changes, or land document changes from one person to another. That's it. And if that transaction can be made seamless and secure, life becomes easy. And something which usually takes a month or a week to get completed can be done in 5 minutes, right? So, and if there is a system which ensures that that is done in a secured medium, so why not use that? And that is what blockchain is all about, right? And you will learn more, and I don't want to get into the details because I have only like another 23 minutes. So how about IoT and blockchain coming together, right? How blockchain can be kind of integrated with IoT. And I said IoT, in IoT world, everything starts with the thing or the asset, right? And we saw the reference architecture also, how an device or an asset is connected to the cloud platform. Either it can connect directly, as I said, if a device is smart enough, which has its own communication module, which also knows how to talk to in MQTT or MQP, whatever is the protocol that the cloud understands, then it can talk directly. That is the number one that you see in this diagram left hand side, right? And if the asset is smart, but at the same time it cannot talk in all those languages, right? It knows only to talk in Bluetooth, or it knows only to talk in a different protocol. Then it will talk to a device like a gateway. It could be your mobile phone also, right? Or it could be any device which understands how the asset talks to it, and it also understands how it is supposed to talk to the cloud platform. So it acts as an intermediate which converts the protocol from the assets into a form in which the cloud can understand. So that's the number two, right? And how do you integrate blockchain into this mix, right? So one is, of course, the once you send the data to the cloud, right, that the cloud can decide, right, and the cloud platform, the IoT platform can decide what data I should store in the blocks, right? Just imagine if all the sensor data that is coming from the aircraft engine is stored in the blockchain, because for every flight, right, every flight that an aircraft takes and lands, there are petabytes of data that is generated. And if I route all the petabytes of data to blockchain, what will happen to blockchain? It will burst, because blockchain is not built to have so much of storage. So so that's a huge challenge that blockchain has in terms of scalability, right? So I cannot just bombard a blockchain block with so much of sensor data every microsecond. If I start sending data to it, it will run out of storage, right? So instead, what this cloud will do, it will process the data, and only the meaningful processed data alone needs to go into the blockchain, right? So we will see some of the examples as we move along. Okay, so now just keep in your mind that in in one and two ways of integrating, it is the cloud, IoT cloud, which decides what will go into the blockchain. Okay, and in three, it is the gateway device, the intermediate device, which decides what goes to the blockchain directly. Okay, so it will not even send the data to the IoT cloud, it will send directly to the blockchain. Okay, and in the fourth one, the device itself knows how to talk to the blockchain. So in which case it will directly communicate. Can, I'm hearing a little background noise, so if you can mute, it will help. Thank you. So that's the way in which blockchain gets integrated with IoT, right? So in a nutshell, the device can talk directly, or it can talk through the gateway, or it can talk through the IoT platform, which decides what data should go into the blockchain. Okay, and how, what is helping? How is blockchain helping this, right? So all of a sudden, it is helping you to have a device democracy, right? So as I said, so far, uh, till now, right, it's more, even IoT platforms are centralized, so where all the data is coming to some cloud platform, and from there intelligence is getting built. That is also going to change. Okay, by 2025 and beyond, what will happen is all these platforms will get divided into small platforms. Okay, so most of the processing will happen at the edge, which means your mobile device or an equivalent server that I will put right in my home will process all of the things, right? And instead of sending everything to the cloud, they will be processed in a decentralized way, right? So if that is happening today, right, with so many devices coming into the foray, right, and forming the IoT, the basic challenge, as I said in the beginning, is the security, right? So blockchain can help in ensuring secure transaction between two devices. Okay, so we are moving into an era of machine to machine communication, right? So where the tomorrow, what will happen if you have the autonomous cars in the road, right? Soon, in the next, and in some countries and states, they have already started experimenting, right? Sooner or later, many of these cars will be autonomous cars which will operate on its own, right? Say for example, if there is a car which is driving through the OMR region in Chennai, right, and it identifies that there is some network congestion happening, right, and it identifies that there is some road work that is going on in that path, right, and which is slowing down the traffic, and there is some congestion. So it will immediately notify, that car will immediately notify all the car to which it is connected to, so that they will not take that route, right? And it will also give you information that the road is getting relayed, which means you will have a potential impact on your shock absorber, and you will have a potential impact on your tire. So people whose tire pressure is under threshold don't take this. So there will be more and more such insights which the car itself will pass on to the other cars, right? And how the other cars consume the data in a secured way, right, is the scenario that you need to think through, and how blockchain helps there, right? So all this data that the individual assets or the devices generate, right, some of these data get stored into the blockchain, right, and they ensure that the, the other machine which are only authorized to use this data will be able to access the data. If any other rogue car starts accessing the data and starts giving wrong information, for example, right, what will happen? Right, so if somebody hacks into it and if he wants to create a traffic congestion, in no time they can do that, right? They can immediately route all the cars to a specific road, and they can bring the whole traffic to a standstill. So for anybody to avoid that, only authorized cars which can communicate through secure medium, right, using their own secure private keys, will be able to access that information from the blockchain network. So that is one simple way in which blockchain is democratizing the whole machine-to-machine communication, so that one machine can communicate with the other without depending on any human being or any other third-party entities. So that is one simple example in which blockchain is revolutionizing or creating the whole device democracy, right? You will listen more from your other sessions. So and there are many use cases across different industries. Okay, so you will, most of you would know that, and primary use case is on supply chain. Okay, that's what, and I will give you one recent example that that we have gone through. Okay, so most a simple example is this whole supply chain, right? So when the goods are sent from source to destination, it could be regional, national, or international shipments as well. Okay, and it could be by road, by air, by water, whatever, right? So the goods gets exchanged, not exchanged, I would say passed down from one entity to the other, right? So and every time it passes through different entities, there will be at least 10 different logistics companies to whom the things will pass on before it reaches the final destination, right? So how will you ensure that your goods is arriving on time, safe, and secure, right? So that itself is a huge market for blockchain, and that is where IoT plus blockchain is getting leveraged today big time. Okay, and one thing that we did, and across, I mean, even in different industries, say for example in energy, right? Energy and utilities. So there are scenarios where I can generate energy using my solar panel, right? And that's a term they call it as prosumers in that industry, which means even the consumers of electricity are producing electricity today. So if I have a solar panel in my rooftop, and if I am producing enough electricity which is more than sufficient for my own usage, and beyond that I have additional electricity that I'm generating, how I can give it back to the electricity grid, right? And how I can give it back to the electricity grid, and how that discount will reflect in my electricity bill, right? So which means I am producing electricity to a certain degree, and I'm giving it back to the electricity board, right? So I should get some discount for that, right? So how do you measure this, and how do you ensure that the data is correct? A blockchain can be implemented for that, and it is being implemented for that also. So where means the whole sensors that you put in the EB lines, right? The grids, the electricity grids, will measure what is the current that is coming in the reverse direction, right? Which is because otherwise it's only in the unidirection, right? I'm consuming it from where it is coming from the distribution lines. If I am feeding back to the distribution line, the current goes in the reverse directions. So the sensors can measure that, and the units that's coming out of it, right, can be discounted against the energy bill that I will get, right? And for me to do that seamlessly in a secure and fraud-free manner, blockchain implementation is the best way. So which will record, I have Swayambunathan has generated this much units of electricity for the month of February. So this much credit he should get, and the credit should be used against this giving him a discount. Right. That is another example of how IoT sensors data plus blockchain plus integrating with the EB microgrid can create a totally different market, right? So soon people will start manufacturing, generating electricity, and they will start today there is no benefit, no motivation for people to do that in our country. That's why they are not doing it. And some countries, they have done it, they have successfully done that. Soon it will come up in all the countries, right? And the technology that is supporting that would be IoT and blockchain put together. And there are many such applications. I'll share this, which you can, for example, in this list, if you look, slock.it, right? So tomorrow, if I want to rent these smart devices, I can do that. Rent. It's like, how do I? It's like a Ola avatar of IoT devices, to put it in short. Okay. So how do I rent some of these devices seamlessly, so that for the amount of time I have rented, that's the only time that you charge. Imagine all this happening without any manual intervention. So which means tomorrow, if I have a smart lock, okay, door locks, right? Then I can just go, if somebody can authenticate through my mobile, if I can authenticate the smart lock of my door, apartment door, right? I can just enable that to any tenant, and he can just, with a dual authentication, he can go and open the door and use my apartment. Until the point he uses, I will charge him for those days only, right? And I don't have to go into any rent agreement, legal documentation, that and all. The transaction that we both go through gets registered in the blockchain, right? And for the duration that he is having my secure code, which I would have given to him to open the lock, right? That duration is going to pay me for the rent. So that is a simple example, right? That's where the world is going to move towards, where they are going to get rid of all these third-party entities which otherwise were involved for transacting between two people, right? So you can go through this offline. There's a plenty of such application. You can Google them and find out. Each one is a very interesting one in their own space, where IoT and blockchain together are being put. Some of them are in the concept stage, some of them are in the implementation stage today. And this is one that we built in HCL. Okay, so it's a smart vaccine distribution management, which is very adapt to the current situation that we are in. Okay, so where the whole COVID vaccine distribution is happening across, and you know the various conditions that the pharma companies have put, right? That they should be stored under certain temperature, and if it not, then the vaccine becomes void and you cannot use it, right? So you can look at in this slide how the once the vaccines come out of the pharma company manufacturing, right, till they reach the pharmacies, right? How do you track them, right, and ensure that they are intact and they are maintained in the temperature and in the appropriate condition in which the pharma companies have given the guidance on, right? So how do you ensure all that? And as I said, the shipment changes hand from one entity to the other as it moves from the pharma company all the way to the retail. There are so many entities that come into the play, right? So today what's happening is each one of them have their own mechanism to accept the goods and put it in their register, right? And they have their own contracts, their own systems to follow, so which is prone to fraud at any point in time. Anybody can go and compromise that system, and the whole shipment gets compromised, right? So if you start using blockchain, right, every transaction, shipment change, handover change that happens, you write the transaction to the blockchain and you write it with the stakeholders who are accepting the goods, right, with their own private key combinations, right, then that record becomes a kind of written in blood which cannot be changed at all, right? So because you are writing it onto the blockchain, nobody can tamper it. So tomorrow, if say for example between the carrier and the warehouse something went wrong, okay, the temperature fell below the guy did not follow the proper mandate, and he did not have an proper air conditioning or the cooling container, and because of it the temperature excursion happened, right? And he will seamlessly just transfer the container and he will leave, okay? But the moment in the pharmacy they find out that this was compromised, they can go and find out where exactly it was compromised. Because there is no human intervention, all the data is written by the sensors, including the location, and at that point in time who was the custodian of that asset. Everything can be traced back all the way to the pharma company, and they can figure out where exactly in the whole transit the medicine or the vaccine was exposed to higher temperature, right? So that you can only penalize that particular person instead of penalizing everybody, right? And also you will know whether it is in a state where it can be administered, otherwise they have to be safely disposed, and that also has a guideline to follow. So all this, when you do it with data coming in from the sensor and leveraging the blockchain to store this vital data at the appropriate time in the blockchain, you collectively achieve this objective of ensuring that the vaccines as manufactured by the pharma, as per the guidance given by the pharma, the patients are administered with that guidance, and ensuring that the vaccine doesn't get spoiled in between, right? And the health and life of the patients and people are not compromised. So this is how it ensures end to end. And we also had a small demo of it. I cannot show the demo, but this is how it looks, where it completely tracks the shipment from source to destination, and the various sensors, that device that we had, a gateway device which monitors that and sends it to our secure IoT platform. And it is also written to we have it these threshold breaches and the change of ownership. These are the two things that we write back to the blockchain. As I said, we don't want to send all the data to blockchain and explode the blockchain. We want to send only the data which needs to be maintained and which are binded by legal contracts, right? So only that. And at any point in time, you can go and trace it back, saying when it was tampered and who was the owner of it, right? So that's what we had built recently, and and it's getting a lot of traction in the market. So that's one example of how IoT plus blockchain is put into use for the safety and well-being of people today in the COVID era. So with that, I would end my session. There are many other slides, but I think we are up the time. It's already 12:30 now. So with this, I would definitely want to say one final thing, that while you all are in this learning journey, make sure that you have fun, you enjoy whatever you learn, because that's the best way to learn anything new. Right? You should have fun. Thank you all. So any questions I can take.
Kindly unmute yourself and raise your queries, or else you can place your queries in the chat.
Thank you, madam. Anything else that any questions? I think now I can see.
Thank you, sir. It was really a very valuable session for all of us. Hope all the participants got their information from Mr. Swaminathan, sir. Your most valuable talk on IoT will be very useful for every participant. It was
Sure.
really an eye-opening session.
Sure.
Beginners of
Great.
IoT.
Great. So, and my best wishes for the next 6 days and happy learning. Thank you all.
Thank you, sir. Thank you so much, sir. Thank you, participants. Kindly join for the afternoon session by 1:30 p.m.
Thank you, sir. Thank you all.
సార్ చాక్ పీసులు సార్ చాక్ పీస్ క్లాసులు చెప్పొద్దా చాక్ ఎందుకు తెచ్చుకోవాలా